Yeah, thank you for the introduction. As you can see, my name is Cathal Mahon, and I'm at Deep Tech Lab Quantum. And I was actually here a year ago, where I kind of talked about. At that point, we were in the process of standing up the program, and we had just received the names of the 6 companies that I'm going to talk about at that point in time. So I'm really glad to be able to come back here and share with you our learnings and insights. Before I start, how many people are familiar or know what the NATO Diana program is? Okay, so there's roughly half. So I have some slides here that I will maybe not go through super quickly, but relatively quickly, since it seems most people are familiar with the program. I always start with this next slide as my second slide, just to give a little bit background, because this Deep Tech Lab Quantum actually is a new initiative under the auspices of the Bioinnovation Institute. The Bioinnovation Institute is an incubator for life science companies. And this is a company or an organization that has been set up by the Novo Nordisk Foundation in Denmark to encourage the creation of startups in the Danish life science ecosystem. And the reason why I show this slide is because, not just because we are an integrated part of BII, but because the reason we are there is because they are used to dealing with companies that are working with complicated technology, with long times to market, and also lots of capital-intensive companies, but also very, very risky. And that's exactly the same kind of criteria that you can apply to many quantum tech startups. So the way of working at BII was something that we can leverage in Deep Tech Lab. And basically, the proposal that Denmark submitted to NATO, when NATO were looking for requests for proposals for setting up the Diana Accelerator network, our thesis was that we wanted to focus on a single technology rather than one of the 9 emerging disruptive technologies that NATO had identified, because we could see in BII how this really worked very well with having these companies that had essentially the same technology platform. So that was the basis for a proposal, and as you can see from the next slide, NATO actually thought that that sounded like a good idea. At least they decided they would include us among the first 11 accelerator sites that were selected. And here you have a picture here from the inauguration of the facility, where you have Jens Stoltenberg, who was Secretary General of NATO at that point in time, along with 3 ministers who are clipping the ribbon with him. And it's important to point out here that this application or proposal that Denmark submitted had the support of 4 ministries, 3 of them of which are represented there, including the Ministry for Defense. And that's, I think, a very, very important thing for many of these strategies in any country, is that you have the support from a broad range of ministries, because that is the only way to get the political commitment that will provide kind of long-lasting support. So as I said, we opened up there, but I'll just go very quickly through Diana, just to kind of at a very, very high level, to give you an idea of what it's all about and what the objectives are. So Diana, you can see the Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic. The whole objective is basically, and there were talks here earlier on this week, Joe Felter from Stanford had a talk about this. And there was also another panel session talking about kind of, the requirements that the DoD have for quantum. But one of the things he said there was basically that the alliance has lost their technological edge since the fall of the Berlin Wall. And now through this Diana program, they are trying to basically sharpen that edge, as it were, through startups. Because basically, he said, the existing system where you use large defense contractors just doesn't work anymore for technologies that are adapting and evolving so quickly. Just think about AI, for example. So that's why Diana was set up, and there are 3 means that are included in this, and one of which is the network of accelerators, test centers, etc., so that an ecosystem of innovative startup companies based on dual-use technologies can be set up and fostered. Second is the NATO Innovation Fund, which is basically a fund for investing in dual-use technology startups, and pretty much like In-Q-Tel in the States, where they syndicate with other investors that are also in that space. They could be for profit, they could be strategic, whatever, but basically investors that are interested in the dual-use space. And then the last one is this rapid procurement process, and this is actually maybe more important than the other 2 means there, because if you want to be a little bit glib, even if you do the first 2 and you don't do the third one, then you won't get the effect that you really want, which is helping these companies, these startup companies, get their technologies into defense and security applications. So, as I said, this is a chart showing the companies or rather the accelerator sites and test centers that were live during the course of when the program started. The ones that have the blue text are the ones that of the 11 that actually went live, and we're one of those 5, you can see, along with 2 in the US and 2 more in Europe. We are the only one focusing on quantum at this point in time, and the only one focusing exclusively on quantum. So the structure of the whole program in terms of finding the startups is based on the very familiar model I'm sure many of you are familiar with that DARPA uses, the challenge-based model. And these were the 3 challenges that the board of directors for Diana selected and were the basis for the challenge: sensing and surveillance, energy resilience, and secure information sharing. And when you look at this, you can probably very quickly see that sensing and surveillance and secure information sharing are probably the 2 areas where you would expect to find compelling offerings from based on quantum technologies. And that turned out to be the case, because if you look at the companies that we had in, you can see the 2 companies on the left, A-Quark and Phantom Photonics, were addressing cold atom, gravimeters based on cold atoms, and quantum LiDAR for Phantom Photonics, whereas the 4 on the right were various forms of either single photon sources, quantum number generators, QKD systems. So that was basically the split. And also just have a look at where these companies come from. 6 companies, 5 countries, 2 from the UK, and then 1 from Canada, Lithuania, Turkey, and Spain, respectively. So this just really shows how broad this program is in terms of taking companies from across the entire alliance. So the program that we put these companies through was co-created with the other 4 accelerator sites and also with Diana, because there were certain key learning objectives that we wanted them to meet. But we also had a lot of freedom to implement the program, each of the accelerator sites, as we saw fit ourselves. So we introduced we didn't just have classroom teaching, we also had site visits with relevant researchers, relevant companies in Denmark, relevant potential collaborators as well, in order to basically try and give them as much insight as possible into this whole defense and security space. At the end of the program, they progressed. There was a kind of a downsizing round, as it were, to the next stage, because the phase 1, there were 44 companies in total across a whole range of technologies, and they were spread out across these 5 sites. In the second phase, Diana selected 10 of them to go to phase 2, where they received 300,000 euros in financing compared to the 100,000 in the first phase. And for this particular group here, I think it's interesting to know that 4, maybe 4.5, depending on how you count, of those companies that made it to the next phase were quantum-based. So there were roughly around 7 emerging and disruptive technologies represented among those 44 companies, but almost half of them, of those that went to the next phase, were quantum technology based, which I think says something about how NATO and Diana view this technology among the other emerging and disruptive technologies. These are the 4 companies that we have received in the second phase. 3 of them have actually are some of our alumni. And then AFOS is the new addition. This is an Italian company that, as you can see, is working on integrated photonic circuits for quantum computing applications. So right now we're going through a much more bespoke program with these companies. They've already gone through the first phase, more classroom, and now at this stage we're basically asking them, okay, what exactly do you need to progress and achieve your goals? And then we're helping them with that through our contacts network and whatnot. So this is also just to give you some idea of what has happened after that, because going through the program has created a lot of visibility for these companies, and 2 of the companies that you saw on the previous slide have, after they completed the program, received Series A funding. A-Quark Technologies that we had in our program, and then AFOS that did the phase 1 in Italy. And it's also maybe interesting to note that A-Quark Technologies were the first company that went through the Diana program that received an investment from the NATO Innovation Fund, the first direct investment. So the first direct investment that the NATO Innovation Fund did was in a quantum tech company. Again, this is also an interesting data point for everybody here, I think. And I should also maybe add that of the companies we had in the cohort, 2 of them have received funding as well, more seed funding or a size, not a Series A, but that means that half of the companies in the program actually received venture funding either during or shortly after they went through the program. So what about phase 2? Oh, sorry, key learnings and insights. Okay. So one of the things that we really were quite surprised about, to be perfectly honest, and so were the Diana team in London, they did not expect to receive 1,500 applications first time round. And that is actually the number they received. They received 1,500 applications for, at that point in time, 30 slots. So that's like a success rate of 2%. They ended up actually expanding to 44. They found some more money so they could take more companies in because the quality was so good. But that is that really shows that there is a lot of interest from these companies who are basically dual-use companies who are actually operating in civilian markets, but they're interested in exploring what opportunities there may be for them in the defense and security space. And again, I've also written small and big because we were approached by, because we were the only one doing quantum, we were approached by a lot of very large quantum tech startups who were interested in hearing about this program because they saw this as a way to basically getting an in, as it were, into this defense and security market. But I mean, they were way too big for going through the acceleration program, but it was just very interesting to see how much interest there was. And we've actually said to Diana that maybe they should do something to try and make it a little bit more accessible for these larger companies as well. The second thing, it's not just the money. I mean, they got 100,000 K, but we spoke with these companies and they said, it's not the money, it's all these other things. It's getting access to a network, it's getting access to potential end users or collaborators or system integrators, and it's also the visibility. It's all these intangibles. That's what they really saw as the value of the program. And all these things are things that we're trying to kind of incorporate into the next phase so that we kind of can do this in a more structured manner. And finally, and again, there is still lots of room for improvement in terms of making the defense and security market accessible, making it easy for these companies to talk to the key stakeholders and to get a really good idea. And I know it takes time to build up that trust, but these companies, if they don't know exactly what they're developing towards, then it's going to be very difficult for them to develop a product that actually will be bought. So there needs to be some more effort put into facilitating this interaction, and also to reducing the timescales required in order, to get a contract. Because again, these are companies that are in the civilian space. They have civilian markets as well. If they're looking at like 5 years before they get a substantial contract in the defense and security space, then they're just going to say, okay, I think I'll focus on another segment in the civilian sector. This is just taking too much time and effort. So as I said, there are some other learnings as well, but these were the key ones. And as I said, we're trying to actively try and incorporate these learnings into the next phase of the program. And as far as the next phase of the program is concerned, right, so there's nothing on this slide at this point in time, because when I submitted my slides, there was an embargo until the 12th of December to actually say which companies had come in. So I'll just kind of go through the procedure here for the second round. So the second challenge round, that ran during the course of the summer. Closed in August. I said before, they received 1,500 first time round last year. This year, they received 2,600. So that's like almost a doubling in terms of number of applicants. Again, this also took us and the Diana team by surprise. There is apparently a very large demand out there. Some of these applicants, they heard about it too late first time around, but made sure they applied second time. Many of those that applied first time applied again. So there is a lot of interest, no doubt about that. From September to November, the screening process and evaluation and interviews were performed. 250 interviews were performed. So there's a huge logistical challenge, but Diana and their collaborators managed to do this. And as I said, December 12th is today. That was the day that was planned for the public announcement of the 75 successful applicants. But it was actually announced yesterday. So if you go out and just Google NATO Diana, then on their website you will see the entire list of those companies. And again, this year we have 6 companies again that will be coming to us at the beginning of January. And this boot camp, we are holding a boot camp that week, but that week is the same week across all 13 Accelerator sites. So we're really looking forward now to onboarding these companies when I get back, and greeting them, welcoming them here at the beginning of January, and running through a similar but improved program during the first half of next year. I don't know how I'm doing for time. Okay, 3 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit because, as I said before, Deep Tech Lab Quantum, I mean, we run this program on behalf of the Danish government, where the companies, they receive their grants from NATO Diana, and the operation of the accelerator, that is financed by the Danish government. But this entity, Deep Tech Lab Quantum, is actually an entity that is fully owned by the BII Foundation, which is funded over 90% by the Novo Nordisk Foundation. So during the course of last year, or rather this year as well, we've taken in 5 companies, also based on quantum technology, but with life science applications. So these are the companies that we have here, and you can see it's a pretty broad bunch in the sense that we have companies that are addressing quantum computing, quantum communication, and also quantum sensing. 4 of them are headquartered in Denmark, 1 of them headquartered in Iceland. And I think at this point in time, I think it may be interesting for some people here to know that we actually have an open call where we're actively looking for companies that have quantum tech as their technology platform and then have applications in life science. It is not an explicit requirement that you have to have your headquarters in Denmark. That is our preference, but if you have a technology or addressing a market that is of strategic significance for Denmark, then it's possible to get a dispensation. So if any of you or know of any companies, early stage companies, then I'd encourage you to let them know this. The other thing I just want to stop, because I know time is almost running out, is that we're called Deep Tech for a reason. It's called Deep Tech Lab and then Quantum. But the whole idea is to be able to switch in other types of deep techs. And we've already announced very recently a Power to X program, where we have a similar program that we have for Quantum, but in Power to X. And then we are in the process of putting together a program for AI. We haven't actually gone public with this, but you can see we're doing it because we're hiring up for a team to do this. But we're doing this in collaboration with partners in Denmark, but that's why there's no logo there, because, as I said, it's very, very early stage. But we're doing it for 2 reasons. One, because AI is incredibly important for many industry and many industrial players, and also because we have the Gefion supercomputer now in Denmark. And the second thing is we want to do a crossover between the companies in the AI program with the companies in the quantum tech program. Great. And with that, thank you very much.